Well, good afternoon. It is my pleasure to go ahead and acknowledge our area legislators who did a terrific job this session. And it is nice to hear directly from them, not only from the media or Facebook. So it's going to be exciting. So please hold your applause until everybody is acknowledged. We have Senator Eddie Lucio Jr., Senator Juan Chuy Hinojosa, Representative Sergio Muñoz, Representative Bobby Guerra, Representative Terry Canales, and not able to attend is Representative Oscar Longoria, but he's being represented today by his district coordinator, Tony Flores, and Legislative Director, Michelle Villarreal. Also, we have the presence of Representative Eddie Lucio III. From the city of McAllen, we have our city mayor, Jim Darling, Commissioner Hilda Salinas, Commissioner John Ingram, Commissioner Veronica Whitaker, Commissioner Scott Crane, Commissioner Aida Ramirez, District Judge Fred Garza, and from Rio Grande City we have Mayor Rubén Villarreal. From the Consulado de Mexico, Consul Erasmo Martínez, Consul José Manuel Gutiérrez, Vice Consul Oscar Alba. And I would like to thank our sponsors of this event, Limeberger, Gogan, Blair, and Samson, McAllen Hidalgo International Bridge, and Anzalduas International Bridge. We have in each table, you have a report of the 83rd Legislative Session presented by the City of McAllen, McAllen Economic Development Corporation, and the McAllen Chamber of Commerce. We're going to thank also our co-host is the City of McAllen and the McAllen Economic Development Corporation. Now we have the presence of Mayor of the City of McAllen, Jim Darling, who has some words for us.
Thank you, Alma. This is a really interesting book. I like to refer to it as The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, but it's important. You know, it's so nice to have a great Hidalgo County delegation, and that's what we have. We have a Great Valley delegation, but especially Hidalgo County delegation. As a city attorney over the years, I spent a lot of time in Austin fighting bad bills that were anti-city, from a standpoint of growth, economic development, from what we have to do, unfunded mandates. And I got to tell you, it's such a pleasure working with this Hidalgo County delegation and all the great leaders here, because they understand cities. They understand what local government's all about. They understand economic development and how state can hinder that. And so when we ask them for something or they actually contact us on something, it's really responsive to our needs. And so on behalf of the City Commissioner, we're greatly indebted to the service that you provide, just generally, but especially as it relates to local government. There was an interesting session this time, and obviously the merger of the university was important and the medical school was important. And I'd like to say I had a little token help on that, because I flew up to Austin a couple of times, and right on the crucial day that I came up, you know, the Harlingen delegation, I love the city of Harlingen, by the way. I drive through it every time I go to the island. And their team was composed of Boswell, Whittington, and Shepherd. And our team, the civilians, was Cantu, Cardenas, and Rocha. So when I got up there, they said, "We got a job for you." And so I couldn't figure out what, and it was a pretty big deal. So they rushed me down to the pit outside where the House of Representatives meets. And that's the pit is where they go in and they take representatives out, and you talk to them a little bit and they go back in. And so we had a guy from the Tea Party who hired a lobbyist for 3 hours to go get Tea Party representatives. And so they brought them out to me. I talked to 27 different ones. And so at the end of that, I was watching, I would talk to them, and then they'd go over to Boswell, Whittington, and Shepherd. And I realized my contribution to Hidalgo County to the medical school, I was a token Anglo. But I'm going to tell you something, and that's a true story, but this is true too. Every one of those guys that came out of there, the Republican Tea Party people, had nothing but the highest compliment for our Hidalgo County delegation. I was so proud of that, to be part of that in Hidalgo County. They did do that. So we've had guys that have gone up to hostile territory, Republican-led Congress, Senate and House, and they've come back as known as for a reputation of hardworking, dedicated people to the citizens of their district. They've passed significant legislation. They've gotten important committee assignments, and more importantly, they've worked together in a bipartisan atmosphere to bring back things I don't think we ever could bring back without that effort. So on behalf of the City Commission, the Mayor, the Utility Board, all the people, all of our friends in this room, I want to thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. Next, we're going to have some comments from our state senators and representatives. I want to let you know a little bit about, instead of going through their bios, because everybody knows them so well, I want to just let you know what committees they're on, and then really have them spend the time and let you know what they've done for our community. State Senator Eddie Lucio Jr. is the Vice Chair of Education Committee, Business and Commerce Committee, Finance Committee, Finance Subcommittee on Fiscal Matters, Redistricting Select, and State Affairs. Senator Lucio.
Thank you, Doctor. Before the official clock starts, I do want to say, Mayor, that time you called me and you say, "How you doing, Lucio?" And my wife was listening to our conversation. I says, "How you doing, darling?" and then my wife says, "Who was that?" I said, "The Mayor of McAllen." "Sure, I thought he was a man." That's his name, darling. Good morning. It's truly an honor for me to be here as a member of this wonderful delegation we call the Rio Grande Valley. I want to thank the McAllen Chamber of Commerce for organizing this event. And I want to welcome to my district. I'm very proud of this area of McAllen. It's part of my senatorial district. I'm happy to have the opportunity to update you on some of the important bills passed this 83rd Legislative Session. I was given 8 to 10 minutes. If anybody doesn't want to hear everything, just raise your hand and I'll sit down. But I'm also pleased to report that this session I was able to pass nearly 50 pieces of legislation benefiting the Rio Grande Valley and the state as a whole. I also took tremendous pride in working with my fellow delegation members in passing legislation important to all of you, our constituents. I was most proud to support our delegation's biggest priority of the session, Senate Bill 24, which authorized the creation of a new first-class university in the Rio Grande Valley. The impact of this legislation cannot be overstated. It may create as many as 10,000 jobs, and permanent university fund dollars will build cutting-edge research facilities to attract students and faculty from around the world. I don't have to tell some of you, and I've met some of you earlier that were around in 1990 when I first ran for the Senate, that this was truly an emotional session for me because of this bill. But the many years culminated the work that I was involved along with some of my colleagues for higher education, and especially the medical school that started with a study in 1990. It was an emotional session, to say the least. In addition to joint authoring Senate Bill 24, I was proud to further support the bill as a member of the Senate Finance Committee by securing $10 million in the state's budget to facilitate the transition of the Regional Academic Health Center into the new university's 4-year medical school. With passage of this bill, the entire valley will soon become a center for multinational education, medicine, and industry. I commend the leadership of Representative Rene Oliveira and Senator Juan Hinojosa, as well as the other delegation members, Sergio Munoz Jr., Bobby Guerra, and Terry Canales, for their hard work and leadership, and also Representative Martinez out of Westlaco. I'm also thankful to my son, Representative Eddie Lucia III, who in the darkest and the most challenging moments of this bill's development demonstrated incredible leadership by bringing stakeholders together to achieve consensus. I think the delegation will support that statement. I was also happy this session to work with our delegation to pass other bills intended to improve industry, trade, and tourism in the Valley. Chief among these is House Bill 2623, which I sponsored in the Senate, and which is intended to encourage commercial space flight in Texas. Briefly, the bill ensures the public's right to beach access while also providing a way to protect public safety during space launches. In addition to this bill, I had the pleasure of working with the governor's office to secure as much as $15 million in state funds for SpaceX if it locates to a spaceport in Texas. The proposed Operation Launch Site will infuse an estimated $51 million annually into our regional economy and will create approximately 600 well-paying jobs. More than that, the social benefits of getting our children interested in space and technology are incalculable. This session, I continued my commitment to protecting homeowners and encouraging home ownership. Bills I passed this session originated in the Valley, but will have lasting statewide impact. I passed legislation to protect homeowners victims of natural resources from paying too high property taxes when they rebuilt or fixed their homes. Numerous Texans were forced to rebuild their homes after Hurricanes Dolly and Ike. After rebuilding their homes to standards dictated by the state's disaster recovery program, many homeowners saw their property taxes skyrocket through no fault of their own. These individuals already lost their homes once. This change in law will now ensure that they aren't taxed out of their homes that they rebuilt. I also passed Senate Bill 112, which will require homeowners insurance companies give a detailed description of each deductible so buyers can make responsible decisions when purchasing a home. Finally, I was incredibly proud to co-author Senate Bill 1553 that helped veterans as well as professional educators purchase a home. Senate Bill 1553 adds veterans and educators, an amendment that I added to the bill, to the Homes for Texas Heroes Home Loan Program, which provides home loans and down payment assistance. Veterans eligible under the program need only have been honorably discharged from one of the United States military services. Now, spouses of deceased service veterans or members are also eligible to apply. Over the years, we have heard that the housing needs of Texas veterans are much greater than available resources to help them. This bill gives our veterans one more option. At the beginning of the session, I was delighted to be reappointed to the Senate Finance Committee. I was also appointed for the first time as the new Vice Chair of the Senate Committee on Education. These two committees had a major role in shaping public schools for the next 2 years. As you know, this session, our state faced a major challenge in ensuring our schools were adequately funded. In 2011, those in charge cut billions of dollars from Texas public schools. I could not support that budget. I knew the cuts would be devastating here at home, and they were. I was pleased this session, however, to have helped restore $3.4 billion in Texas public schools in addition to the base budget mitigating cuts made last session. Certainly more needs to be done, we all agree. I remain hopeful that the courts will require greater public education funding from the state of Texas. I will continue to work towards ensuring schools have all the resources they need to support our children. I was also pleased this session to have passed Senate Bill 376, which requires school districts to make available a free breakfast to all students if 80% or more of those students qualify for free or reduced price meals. Eliminating hunger in Texas is a cornerstone of my legislative agenda. This bill was, in my opinion, the most important bill I passed out of the Education Committee. Let me tell you why I say this. The bill was uniformly endorsed by leading statewide experts on hunger policy because of its tremendous statewide impact. Nearly 3 million Texas students qualify for subsidized meals, and close to half attend schools where at least 80% of their peers also qualify. Few resources are as important as a nutritious meal. It has been shown that providing access to nutritious food increases students' concentration and reduces students' absences and, of course, discipline problems. No child should fail to reach their full potential because they're worried about where their next meal will come from. As a member of the Senate and as a newly appointed member of the National Conference of State Legislatures Hunger Partnership, I will continue to fight for the hungry children of Texas. Other important education bills passed this session includes House Bill 5. I think most of you have heard and read about House Bill 5, which reforms Texas's high-stakes testing regime and high school degree standards. I was a joint author on this legislation. The final bill reduces the number of high school and, of course, exams from 15 to 5. The bill keeps graduation standards vigorous by requiring degree plans which include 4 courses in English, science, and mathematics. I also sponsored a companion bill, House Bill 2201, which will increase the number of career technology education courses that may satisfy advanced mathematics requirements. With House Bill 5, I am convinced that we are forging a plan that will ensure our students have flexible degree paths and will ensure that they leave high school, college, and career ready, while also not overburdening our teachers with teaching to a high-stakes test in almost every course subject. Students who spend their public education years planning for their future, not just planning for a test. Finally, I was able to pass statewide 3 important education bills that all have their origin right here in the Rio Grande Valley. First, the bill allowing technical colleges to offer courses as part of a high school dropout prevention programs. This bill strengthens previous legislation replicating area schools' successful dropout recovery programs and replicating them statewide. Second, I passed a bill requiring the state to develop a strategic plan to incentivize private businesses to both donate to early college high schools like PSJA's New Early College High School, and to work with the schools to maximize job placement opportunities. Finally, especially important for our region of the state that has a high immigrant population, my bill was passed strengthening those children's 1-year exemption from taking state-mandated STAR exams. Though I'm impressed with the work done this session on education issues, improving our educational system remains a never-ending task. I remain committed to ensuring every Valley student receives the best education possible. Our kids deserve no less. Unfortunately, no legislative session is perfect. Thus, no legislative update would be complete without discussion of legislative priorities that went unfulfilled and must be revisited next session. One of the biggest disappointments of the regular session was the legislature's failure to expand Medicaid. Because Texas opted out of the Medicaid expansion, uninsured adults below 100% of poverty level may have no assistance available in 2014. Statewide expanding Medicaid could cost the number of uninsured by more than 1 million. The impact is biggest in the Valley. The Valley population is growing, yet the region has substantially higher poverty rates than Texas or the United States as a whole. Over 30,000 people in Hidalgo County alone will continue to be uninsured because Texas refused to expand Medicaid. Hidalgo County is losing out on over $200 million in new annual Medicaid funds. These dollars could support more than 1,000 family doctors and nearly 30,000 registered nurses. Nonetheless, I take solace in the fact that our state's budget includes some increases in public health. Health and Human Services programs were budgeted a total of about $74 billion for the next biennium. This is nearly an 8% increase over the last budget. This increase includes about $71 million for the Texas Women's Health Program, which provides family planning and cancer screening services to women. It also includes about $3.8 million to increase Medicaid reimbursement rates for about 17,000 primary care physicians. I'm pleased with these increases, but again, more can be done. You can count on me to be a tireless advocate along with those at the table for increasing healthcare access to the Valley and statewide. Let me conclude by saying that on the whole, I think the 83rd Legislative regular session was a productive one, marked by cooperation, compromise, and hard work among members. In fact, multiple news sources went so far as to call it a kumbaya session. I, of course, think this is how government should operate every session. As always, I remain committed, and I thank you for the opportunity to join with the good citizens of this area of the Valley. And as we prepare ourselves during the interim, we'll continue to do our best to echo your sentiments in Austin. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Eddie Lucio Jr., for your service. Next is State Senator Juan Chuy Hinojosa. Committees. Senator Hinojosa is Chairman of the Intergovernmental Relations Committee, Vice Chairman of the Finance Committee, Legislative Budget Board, Agriculture, Rural Affairs, and Homeland Security Committee, Criminal Justice Committee, Natural Resources Committee, and Redistricting Select. Senator?
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, my voice sounds worse than it is. I spent too much time this weekend up at A&M College Station watching Aggies play Alabama. And then I saw UT lose. And then Canelo lost. And then I left early when Houston, Texas were losing. And my daughter tells me, Dad, they won. Let me tell you, after having been gone 7 months, it's really nice to be back home. And I have to tell you that in all the sessions that I've served, this is one of the best sessions for us here in the Rio Grande Valley, and also for the state of Texas. As you know, last session, we faced a lot of challenges in a sense that we were looking at a $15 billion deficit in our budget. So we had to cut a lot of worthy programs. It was very unfortunate, but we are a pay-as-you-go state. We can't print money like they do up in Washington, D.C., which is good. Our budget last session, I'll give you just an overview. I will not go through all my bills for the simple reason that I carried about 80 bills that I authored and or co-authored for my delegation from the Valley up to Corpus Christi. But I have to tell you that last session our budget was $173 billion budget. That's when we had a $15 billion deficit. This session, our budget was $197 billion. We have plenty of money due to a strong economy here in the state of Texas. We continue to lead the state in the creation of new jobs. We have gas and oil really producing a lot of revenue for our state budget, which is good for our state. And we also appropriated an additional $23.4 billion in emergency and supplemental funds that were needed to make up some of the reductions that took place last session. At the same time, we did not raise taxes. We reduced taxes by $1.4 billion. In addition, we made the 100,000 exemption for the margin tax permanent, so that if you make less than 100,000, you don't pay any taxes under the margin tax system. Now, our number one bill this last session, of course, was the creation of a new university, merging UT Brownsville with UT Pan American and creating a medical school the medical school. Senator Eddie Lucio and myself have been working on that issue since we created the RAC back in 1987, 89. I was on the House, Senator Lucio was on the Senate. He authored that bill, and I sponsored the bill in the House. And now, this last session, we were successful in passing legislation, creating this university and a freestanding medical school. Now, the reason that's important for us is because now that the university will have access to the PUF fund. In addition to that, it will be able to attract more grant money, more research money. But the medical school is really the key. The medical school will provide more access to health care. It will provide more doctors, but it will also attract a lot of new businesses that are health-related to the Valley. It'll create 7,000 new jobs in the next couple of years once it's up and running. So this is a great, you know, I guess in people's lives, in community events, this is one event that will forever be remembered, that will really change the face of the Rio Grande Valley, not only in terms of education, but in terms of health care. Remember that. I mean, this is really a major accomplishment on the part of the Valley delegation. And let me tell you, it was not easy. Okay? We had a lot of negotiations, but we never lost our focus. The differences that we had, we tried to work them out behind closed doors. At the end of the day, we really took a regional approach to benefit the whole Valley and all of South Texas, not just one community, because we see ourselves as one team, one family, and one community. Now, public education. Public education, as you know, is so important for us. It's the best educator, the best equalizer that we have in our society. Education gives you knowledge. Knowledge gives you the power to grow and succeed. We restored $3.9 billion to public education that was cut last session. But out of that, besides that, we also funded the student growth in our public schools. We are growing by 80,000 new students a year in the state of Texas. People just come in here every day, thousands a day are moving to Texas because of our economic climate and because of our job market. And I'll just touch on education in that we used to get a lot of complaints from the parents, number one, in terms of testing. We reduced that from 15 to 5 assessments. Number two, a lot of complaints about business community, saying, well, we don't have the labor with the skills to be able to grow our business. So what we did, we changed and revamped the graduation requirements so that now students have options. Not everybody wants to go to college. That doesn't mean you're dumb, doesn't mean you're not smart, doesn't mean you're not intelligent. But we have to provide kids, students, different options so they won't get bored and drop out of school. As a consequence, we now have career, technology, industry options and still be able to graduate with the requirements to go to attend any college that you want. So we provide more flexibility so that our students wouldn't drop out. So our students would have a skill so that students could be employed if they decided to opt and not attend college and do something else with their lives. And that was very important. Charter schools. Charter schools have been somewhat controversial. Some have been very successful. Others have not. So what we did, we changed the supervision and regulation of charter schools from the School Board of Education to TEA to have better oversight over the charter schools. We also increased the cap so that we could probably get up to 15 new charter schools a year with a cap of 205 statewide. Higher education also, our biggest problem with higher education, quite frankly, is trying to control tuition. I voted against deregulation a while back because I felt there was a backdoor tax on our working middle-class families. You're poor, you get financial aid. You're wealthy, or you don't need the aid. So it's been a struggle for a lot of families. So we try to increase Texas grants by $724 million to provide financial aid even to students that come from working families. Water. You know, water is a huge problem for us in the state. Last session, after legislation, a constitutional amendment that was approved by the voters to provide for $6 billion in water bonds. Those are evergreen water bonds. That means that once they're used, they replenish, once they're paid back to the state. In this session, we passed a $2 billion constitutional amendment to take $2 billion from the rainy day fund to have a total of $8 billion for water projects and really push our state water plan, which is very important. Water, without water, well, we can't live, number one, but it's also a quality of life issue, but it's also a business and economic issue. Veterans. As you well know, we have a lot of veterans here in the Valley. You know, I served in the United States Marine Corps in Vietnam. I lost 3 of my high school friends in Vietnam. But I also know that those of us, many of us who came back, unfortunately, never received the health care they needed. They never received the support from the community, never received the jobs they were seeking. Many of them became street people, and many of them had mental health problems. This last session, we added $5 million to expedite and hire 52 new claim processors for disability claims. We also added $5 million to just focus on veterans' mental health issues. And we provided for property tax exemptions to veterans who came back from Afghanistan or Iraq or overseas. And also they were killed in action so that the wives, the widows would not have to pay any property taxes for the rest of their lives. So we, here in Texas, we do focus and we do take care of our people, our community, because I always think, who are the veterans? Who are the soldiers? I mean, they're not our neighbors, our friends, our brothers and sisters, our parents. And that's us. So we must always respect and help our veterans. You know, mental health care is a big issue throughout the state. For so many years, we've underfunded mental health. This last session, we added $259 million additional money just to deal with people that got mental health issues. And that is so important because many times our jails are used as, quite frankly, as a way to deal with people who are mentally ill. Instead of trying to put them in the proper institution, we arrest them because they're hanging out in the street for loitering and put them in city jails or county jails, and it's a big issue statewide, and we're trying to address that by providing additional funding. And I will just give you some programs of interest in terms of funding, what we did. For us here in the Valley, we were able to secure $23 million for the bicentennial overpass at the mall. As you know, it's been closed down. That area needs to be developed, Mayor, and I work with City of McAllen trying to get us $23 million so we could change the way it's configured so that we can continue attracting more business to the mall and the convention center area. For the farmers, you know, we put $15 million boll weevil eradication. You know, sometimes we forget about agriculture and what an important role it plays for us here in South Texas. But we also look out for them. We have also $200,000 for the A&M Citrus Center for greening. That's, I guess, a disease that is impacting the citrus industry up in Florida. It's coming this way. It's very destructive, so we need to find a way to continue doing research. We also were able to secure $5.1 million for the Raymondville Drainage Project, which is very important to us as this area continues to flood. $21 million for CASA. I know a lot of you are involved in CASA. It's very important. We had $20 million for the Child Advocacy Centers, $12 million for Teach America, $11 million for Community and School, and we also appropriated $300 million to the Teacher Retirement Fund to make sure that it stayed healthy and sound. And I just have to tell you, I want to thank you for your support during the session. Many of you, especially our public officials, come and visit us, come and advocate to other legislators on our priorities. For us, that's been empowered us because that means that we have your support in terms of the issue that we're pushing for. I will not go into transportation because I never finished, but I have to tell you and that we have a great delegation, We work well as a team. Senator Lucio and I have been together as a team for a long time. We have a young but very smart, aggressive delegation, except for Bobby Guerra. But Bobby performed as a veteran. He did a great job. And I have to tell you, man, I'm just very proud of the delegation that we have. Thank you so much for your support. God bless you all.
Thank you, Senator Hinojosa, for your service as well. Thank you. Our next speaker is State Representative Sergio Munoz Jr. Sergio, Representative Munoz is on the Appropriations Committee, the Insurance Committee, Local and Consent Calendars Procedural, the Appropriations Subcommittees on Articles 6, 7, and 8, those are big ones, and Transportation Fundings. Sergio.
Okay, well, it's always easy to go after Senator Lucio and Hinojosa, right, because they give you all the important parts of what we accomplished this legislative session. But I just want to touch on a couple of other things that we worked on, I think, that were very important. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a few words with you and let you all know what we did this past legislative session. I know it was a long time that we were there in Austin, but we accomplished many great things that we not only are setting in motion right now, but also for the future. First and foremost, like has already been mentioned, Senate Bill 24, which was extremely important and crucial for our area. Years of work in the making to make sure that it became a reality, but it really shows what compromise and working together is all about when we're able to sit down, work out our differences, but do the best that we can for the region. Because not only are we going to have a great university, but we're going to have access to the PUF funding, which is extremely important, that for so many years UTB was not allowed to access, which will allow them now to access that money to build that infrastructure for the continued growth that we're experiencing here in the Rio Grande Valley. And it's always about putting the talented young men and women on track to pursue their higher education. I know that's going to be a game changer, not only for us, but for the rest of the state. We're also able to work towards closing the gap, the shortage of physicians, medical personnel that we experience here with our ever-changing and growing population. Senate Bill 24 will allow us to address that as we work towards the freestanding medical school that I know is going to be very important and have a great impact for us here in the Rio Grande Valley. In terms of the overall budget, I know Senator Lucio and Senator Hinojosa mentioned a lot of the highlights of the amount of money that we were able to restore for not only our public education, our public schools, but also what we're able to do for Texas Grants. That is a program that has a positive impact and is extremely successful for especially a lot of our students here in the Rio Grande Valley. Not only are we able to put $145 million more, but as the Senator mentioned, we're at an all-time record high of about $750 million. Now, the demand is still there. We're going to do more, we're going to do better, but at least we're able to work one step closer to bridging that gap. In terms of water and transportation funding, we know how important that is for us, for business, not only for our families, but for our businesses to grow. As was mentioned earlier, we have the water constitutional amendment that will be in the ballot this November, which establishes or allows us to get money from the rainy day fund, but the enabling legislation it establishes the bank or the amount and the process on how the money will be spent to create more wastewater systems, more reservoirs, to continue to expand and help our businesses throughout the state and our families. And when you look at transportation funding, I had the honor to serve on the Select Committee on Transportation Funding during the last call special session, and we were able to work out a compromise and have enabling legislation that should hopefully generate up to $1.2 billion a year for our transportation funding that can go to the construction of new roadways, new projects. It's also going to allow TxDOT to look for over $100 million in savings and efficiencies throughout their department without taking money away from any existing projects that can go to pay down some of the debt from some of the Prop 14 bonds that are already in existence. Some of the local bills that we worked on, I think are very important, was House Bill 474 which really came together by working closely with Keith and the Economic Development Corporation here in McAllen, Rigo and the Bridge here in Mission, and McAllen, also our counterparts here in the city of FAR. We were all able to sit down and work together and establish an overweight oversized corridor in a limited and prescribed way that will allow the flow of goods and help the produce and manufacturing industries, because as you all are well aware, they have a lot of investment not only on this side of the border but also just south of us. And if we can do anything or allow or give them tools and resources to allow their business to move a little bit more efficiently and seamlessly, that was the goal of 474. Not only taking into account the safety of the people on our roadways, but working with TxDOT to evaluate the roadway and see how we can make those goods and move a little bit faster in that limited and prescribed way, and work to increase our commercial traffic from our international bridges, which is going to be a great boon for us here in the Rio Grande Valley. And we're hoping to use that as a tool to attract more investment, not only to our foreign and industrial trade zones, but we're also looking at it as a tool to make sure that they use our ports of entry, not only to be a gateway for the rest of the state of Texas, but also for the rest of the country. And when you look at what we're able to do as a delegation, it's already been mentioned, is extremely important, because we're all working not only for the Rio Grande Valley, but I think for the whole region as a whole, and that cooperation is extremely important. And I was very honored to continue to serve as a state representative. I know over the interim, we have an opportunity to work on different ideas, different goals for the next legislative session, and that's where our relationship with each one of you comes into play. And it's extremely important that our doors are open to have that dialogue and that communication, see what we can do to make not only the region but the state a better place for all of us. So thank you again for your time. May God bless all of you, and may God continue to bless our great state. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sergio Munoz Jr. Thank you for your service as well. Our next speaker is State Representative Bobby Guerra. Representative Guerra is on the Public Health Committee and Transportation Committee.
I left my cane over here. Actually, yeah, I was the senior member of the freshman class from the Valley delegation. But I also want to tell you that there were a lot of other legislators that were brand new to the legislature this session from across the state, other folks who had already raised their families and decided they wanted to give back, and I became very good friends with many of them. I think Sergio touched on something a minute ago. One of the things that I learned in the House right off the bat was building relationships. You get things done by building relationships in the Texas House of Representatives and also in the Senate. When you establish a common ground, because they found out I like to drink whiskey and shoot guns too, and so they thought hey, he's a good old boy. And but it's finding that common ground, and so we were able to accomplish a lot of things by doing exactly that, building those relationships, helping them, finding out what their issues are in their parts of the state, and then they will listen to you about your issues in your part of the state. I want to first thank Speaker Strauss. As a freshman, he saw the confidence in me to place me on the Public Health Committee and also on Transportation. Two huge committees, two committees I asked for, two committees that are so important to the Rio Grande Valley. Of course, Transportation for our infrastructure, our highways, we've got to keep the commerce going. But of course on public health, I basically have 6 hospitals in my district and probably the largest number of healthcare providers in the Rio Grande Valley. And so we're having a lot of growing problems. And so there were a lot of issues and a lot of bills that we worked on in that regard. And it was a real pleasure to do that. A lot of folks don't understand. A lot of these committees, we go till 2 or 3 in the morning, and we would start out at 8. Of course, you have to get up earlier in the morning, go down there, have your oatmeal, and get after it. I lost weight up there because I was in bed by 10 or 10:30. I wouldn't like a lot of these young bucks where they could go out and and party a little bit at night. I was up there to do a job. You sent me up there, and I want to thank all of you in my district for sending me up there. It was a wonderful experience, and I would like to go back. Senator Hinojosa, Senator Lucio, ladies and gentlemen, true statesmen. I tell you, on the Senate side, what a pleasure, what leaders. Watching both of them work was an inspiration, and I think all of us are very, very honored to have them up there because they're working very, very hard. Also, I have to thank Eddie Lucy III. What a gentleman. He just left right now. He had to take off, but he was a pleasure to work with. Chairman Oliveira on House Bill 1000, which was the merger medical school. That was the first time that that the legislature, one of the bodies, actually voted on it, and we were able to pull that off virtually with 100% of the House voting for us, and that was real chill went up my spine when that happened. And of course, Senate Bill 24, when it came back to the House, which was actually the bill that passed that created our future here in the Rio Grande Valley. It was really, when you see all those lights and those bells going off and they're all green, whoa, you get goosebumps. We have great leaders, and I think with my years of practicing law really served me well because I was able to listen and filter through the issues and get right down to it. I also want to thank Chairman Mando Martinez. He very knowledgeable. He's been up there for a while, and I learned a lot from him. And ladies and gentlemen, Sergio, wow, always diligent, always there. Nobody ever votes for him. He pays attention. Great pleasure to work with you. And of course, my fellow freshmen. Watching this guy on the floor, Terry Canales, I call him a conejo. I mean, he was jumping around, And of course, Oscar Longoria. Oscar is a more quiet fella, but he's always thinking. Pretty brilliant guy. And I don't think I've left anybody out of the Valley delegation. Let's talk about some of the bills. House Bill 3714, there's a lot of entrepreneurs and business people here. I have to thank Adrian Arriaga. He came to see me. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to listen to our constituents and find out what's going on, what's the problems. Adrian came up to Austin and visited with me. He says, Bobby, we're focusing on bringing in business from out of state, but we've kind of forgotten about our small business that's here, 1 to 200 employees. We used to have an advisory panel on the state level that would assist our business folks with their particular needs, their particular problems, some of the red tape they run into. We don't have that anymore. And I saw that in one of my communities where there was a lady that came to us, and she came 5 generations of cattle ranchers, and she told us that they decided to scale down their business and go for more quality type cattle. And so they started raising some very special herds. And they butchered their own cattle, but they went to use FDA, butchers, FDA, processors, FDA, packers, FDA, freezers. And one day they get a visit by the health department. They said, you got to build a restaurant. And she says, I don't want to build a restaurant. We're selling specialty steaks throughout the United States. No, you got to do this, you got to do that. She had nowhere to turn. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. So I work very closely with Senator Armbruster, the governor's office, and we work, quite a bit of hours working this thing out, but it's House Bill 3714 for those of you that don't know about it. You'll be hearing about it. The governor's already signed the bill. It relates to the creation of Office of Small Business Assistance Advisory Task Force. It creates a small business advisory panel that works alongside the Office of Small Business Assistance in the government code. It will improve the development and growth and vitality of small business, but cut through all the red tape. It's going to cut through the red tape. You're going to have somebody to call, somebody to talk to, and I hope this helps our small business. I know my district, my family's entrepreneurs for many, many years, and I saw a need here, and I'm very, very hopeful that this task force is going to be very useful in the state. House Bill 3761. I worked again with Keith on this and the ag folks. And of course with Sergio, he co-authored the bill with me and the rest of the delegation, and Senator Hinojosa as well. This relates to a feasibility report on the creation of a border agriculture inspection training program. Originally, the way this bill was designed was that we were going to, the way I first drafted the bill, and we worked with Keith on this and others and Sam Bale, we were going to, the bill, what it basically did was took Texas A&M, the facility in Weslaco, and we were going to use their entomologists and try to train more federal inspectors so we can move the goods across the border in a more updated fashion, where we're going to keep the goods flowing, because they're sitting there for hours and hours, and it was important that we try to do something about this. Well, one of the problems that I ran into was that some of the other House members throughout the state were concerned that this bill had a fiscal note. So we had to kind of water it down, but I think it's gotten a lot of legs since then, Keith, and we're working with the federal government and our congressman. It kind of woke some people up. You know, again, it goes back to educating. I had a representative tell me, he says, well, geez, Bobby, why do I want to make farmers in Mexico rich? And my wife won't even let us eat tomatoes from Mexico. And I said, no, you don't understand. You got to understand that many of our growers here have farms in Mexico. Many of our suppliers here have to supplement their products to meet their demands from Mexico, and we have the superhighway coming in from the West Coast down here to the East Coast. We're not ready for that. And so this is a step in the right direction. I will be flying up to Washington soon to visit with our congressman. I've already visited with Congressman Cuellar, and I'm in talks with Congressman Vela. And again, Keith and I will be working and Sam Bell will be working on this to make sure we can increase the number of products that are coming across, the volume of products, keep commerce going. So, you know, I thought that was a very, very important bill. Sitting on transportation, one of the things that I want you all to understand is that we also passed a $450 million appropriated to be used for the repair of damaged state and county roads by trucks carrying heavy equipment and supplies associated with fracking. That's bringing a lot of dollars to the state, creating a lot of jobs, but when we were in orientation in the House, one of the things they did was they put up a big map, a pretty big map up on the screen, and they said for each one of those little dots is an oil well. But they said, remember, for each one of those dots is a water well. So we're using water to create energy. We want to keep the industry going, but we're going to have to do something about this water situation. I would like to announce very quickly that I've been in communication with Carlos Rubenstein, the chair of the Texas Water Development Board. It looks like we're going to be able to get him down here October 15th. You heard about the constitutional amendment that's coming up. We as legislators and the senators, we cannot support the bill, but we can educate on what the bill's about. We're going to try to put together basically a forum to educate our community about what this constitutional amendment will do, and we're going to be inviting not just the city of McAllen, but the city of Mission, Farr, and Edinburgh, and it may even expand beyond that. We don't have a lot of time, but we've got to educate the public that constitutional amendment's coming up. And ladies and gentlemen, it's been raining, but that's just been of a recent time, and I think we all see that we're in a water crisis. There were a lot of other bills that we worked on. I worked very closely with Senator Hinojosa's office on Senate Bill 1623, and to our medical community and our healthcare providers. It related to the creation and operation of a healthcare funding districts in certain counties located in Texas, basically Cameron, Hidalgo, and Webb County. Basically what we're doing is our private hospitals are having to fund the uncompensated care. There were federal dollars that we weren't able to tap into because we didn't have a hospital district. And so what this bill does basically is it creates a special formula that allows us to take those uncompensated dollars, send them up to Washington, and we get a 40-60 return on that investment. And that's going to be huge for our community. Just here in McAllen, I think it's going to be around $460 million. All I can tell you is that it's been a real pleasure. I learned a lot. I think that my many years of experience have helped me be a better legislator, but I still have a long way to go. I have a lot more to learn about issues throughout the state, and I would like to go back and work with these fine folks. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sending me up there. We have a lot more to talk about, but there were a lot of other bills that we passed and worked on, but that was kind of it in a nutshell, and I thank you. God bless you, and God bless Texas.
Okay, thank you, Representative Guerra, as well for your service. Our next speaker, State Representative Terry Canales. And Terry serves on the Criminal Jurisprudence Committee and the Energy Resources Committee. Thank you for being here.
I don't know if it's the tryptophan in the turkey that's putting me to sleep or the legislature, but I think we found a cure for insomnia, ladies and gentlemen. I do serve on the Criminal Jurisprudence Committee and the Energy Resources Committee. I would tell you that the Criminal Jurisprudence Committee is probably the most interesting of them all. They oftentimes met till 4 or 5 in the morning. You'd have to get up and be back in the house on the floor within a couple hours. You shower and you feel like you didn't leave the Capitol. It definitely was an interesting session. We've heard it called a kumbaya session. We've heard it called a great session. I'll tell you what, they're mischaracterizing it. We had a hell of a session, ladies and gentlemen. We brought a lot of money to the Valley. Our legislation that we pushed and fought so hard for is going to forever transform not only the educational but economic landscape of the Valley. And that's what we're talking about. Our health care and our economy depends on human capital. And that's what we did. We fought hard to make sure that the Rio Grande Valley is going to have the best health care for our people possible. We fought hard to make sure that our children were educated. We brought back $3.4 to $3.9 billion in education. We've got a long way to go. We're not even close to where we need to be, but we've made a difference. We funded health, we funded education that we hadn't funded before. We funded growth. The numbers show that we have, just at Doctors Hospital at Renaissance, 800 babies born a month. That's almost a middle school. Think about it. I was joking with Bobby when he says, "Did you prepare a speech?" And I said, "Well, not anything I want to read to anybody." I said, but the best part about going behind Senator Lucio and Senator Hinojosa is I get to say ditto. So I'll do my best not to be verbose and continue on with a couple of things that we want. I won't go into the university. We know what it does. We know what it did, and we know that we cannot predict how awesome it's going to transform the Valley. The amount of things that we've done and the amount of funds that we've brought will forever change us. And those things are unpredictable, as I said. But so I'll go into some of the things that I did in a Criminal Jurisprudence Committee. I'm real proud. I authored a statewide bill that was passed, and it's probably the last bill I think Governor Perry will ever sign that supports minorities. It says that you've got to, if you sign a confession in Texas, it's got to be in a language or that you can understand, read or write. And oftentimes we have people signing confessions that they can't understand, and that's the equivalent of me being in China having to sign a confession. And I think that basically goes towards the basic principles of being an American. We don't want people doing that. Another issue that I dealt with that I'm extremely proud of, that I had the help of Senator Hinojosa, which him and Senator Lucio, I've got to tell you, are grade A. They have the experience, the know-how, and my God, do they know some tricks. House Bill 349 essentially creates the first courthouse in the state of Texas that will provide criminal e-filing. You say, why is that important, Terry? Well, I'll tell you why. Because we've got rental space. We're renting buildings to house all the documents we've got. Our court systems are pretty much run the way they were in the 1800s, with paper, file, and stamp. And so we're not utilizing the technology that we've got at hand. And currently, if you're an attorney representing someone in Mercedes, Texas, you've got to make an hour round trip back and forth to file one motion. That is absurd. The federal courthouse has been doing it for years. And so what I've done, and with this bill, with the help of the legislators here and the legislature, is we've created, Hidalgo County will be the model. They will be the cutting edge forefront, showing people we are progressive and we are the beginning. The civil has already begun, but we have instituted that we will be the first in the state of Texas to provide criminal e-filing within the next 2 years. And I think that is not only a major accomplishment, but it sets the tone and shows people that the Valley is on the forefront of technology, and we are the beginning of the beginning. My district also included large areas of incorporated rural land, and which created a problem, because there used to be legislation that said if your fire hydrants didn't pump 250 gallons a minute, they could just paint them black. And that meant, well, one, the utility companies didn't have any liability, which was why they did it. And two, now that fire hydrant wasn't used. So we basically reformed that law, and now there's many fire hydrants that will be able to be used throughout Hidalgo County, basically protecting rural areas and minimizing the liability of these utility companies and water agencies so that they don't have to paint them black. And people have functioning fire hydrants. So when someone's house is burning, they don't go to a black fire hydrant and say, oh, it just doesn't work. So we've changed that. Water's also one of the things that we were discussing earlier. Water's life. We've got to prepare for not only population growth, but extreme drought. Mr. Guerra said that, we were not supposed to support it one way or another. Well, I say that, they say it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. Well, I support it, so forgive me. I also worked on House Bill 1422, which requires lobbyists to disclose their involvement in political campaigns. I think the more we disclose the relationship between special interests and the legislature, the better off we are. We get to see who's driving what and what money's driving what, and I think that that's better off for everybody. Transparency is the key to better government. So when we understand what special interests are driving the law, we understand why the laws are becoming or why they're being enacted. Finally, and most importantly, we had great success in public education. Texas schools waste too much time, money, and resources teaching standardized tests. We dramatically reduced standardized testing. We've got to educate, protect, and care for our young, our old, our veterans, and most vulnerable, the poor. When I began this speech, I told you this is the Chamber of Commerce meeting. Commerce is money, and money is generated by us, the people in this room. Human capital. We've got to protect our working class people. We've got to educate our children. We've got to ensure that we've got the proper health care, and we've got to ensure that we've got the proper resources. That includes water. So we've come a long way. I believe we did have a hell of a session, but we've got a long way to go. I want to thank you for being here. You are the heartbeat of the Rio Grande Valley. The people in here are the people that drive the economy. The people in here are the driving forces that allowed us to pass the bills, the support that Hinojosa was talking about. The people that come up and tell us. And so before I leave here today, I want to tell you something. As a freshman, I learned a lot of things. I learned there are so many things in the legislature, it's just impossible for us to know everything. But it's incumbent upon you to come and educate us. Help us help you. And so when you've got an issue, when you've got something that concerns you, something that is of the utmost and paramount importance, it is paramount that you discuss it and educate us so that we can do something for you. Thank you for your time. It has been an honor to serve the people of South Texas. I'm glad to be here, and I look forward to serving you in the future. God bless you.